Welcome back. Thanks again for joining us. Now, the SKA International Organisation has been meeting in Cape Town this week. Now, you may remember this. On the 25th of May 2012, the SKA International Organisation announced that South Africa and Australia will co-host the iconic Square Kilometre Array. This will be the world's largest telescope ever built. This unique project is set to test the limits of human engineering and scientific endeavour over the next decade or so. We're now joined this morning from our Parliament studios by Dr. Phil Mjwara. He's the Director General of the Department of Science and Technology in South Africa. Good morning to you, Doc. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Ayanda, and good morning to the viewers.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I understand board members of the SKA had an opportunity to visit the site in the Northern Cape. What progress did they find? What progress has been made in South Africa's side?
When they visited the site on Tuesday, Ayanda, they got a sense of the progress that we have made in South Africa on the building of the dishes and the rollout of the dishes. As you know, by now we've got about 4 dishes on site out of the 64 dishes for the meerkat, and we are busy integrating the receivers and beginning to see if they are operating according to spec. The second part of what we have been doing on site is to build a processor. In other words, when the data comes from these dishes, it goes into a sophisticated computer hardware that has to process the data before the data is distributed to Manchester, which is now the headquarters. So on the progress that we have made towards the building of our 64-dish array, they were quite impressed with the progress that we have made. We also gave them an opportunity to see the social program that we have in Carnarvon. As you know, South Africa, the SKA project, the industry have been investing in making sure that the schools in Carnarvon have the best of teachers for maths and science, and they've got the best computing facilities as well as laboratories. So they had an opportunity to see the schools in Carnarvon. And we are told, in fact, that one of the things that we will be getting out of that investment of the social program is that for the first time, the maths and science students that we've been supporting are getting in the 70s in terms of percentages, and they will probably get into the bursary program that the SKA South Africa is running.
I'm so glad you touched on the social impact of this particular project. We know Northern Cape is the largest province in terms of land mass, the smallest in terms of population, sometimes riddled with poverty. We know a number of social ills are prevalent there. So when we're seeing some social change on the ground, it's a positive thing. But let's speak now. Over the last few months, the SKA organisation has made important decisions regarding the location of its headquarters. What other decisions have been made at the meeting in South Africa over the last few days?
Well, at the moment, as you know, the decision has been made that the headquarters will be in the UK. But most importantly, the board also made a decision around the costs that is associated with building the phase 1 of the Square Kilometre Array. As you know, that the project is in 2 phases. The phase 1 of the SKA, which will ensure that South Africa gets about 160-odd dishes in the Karoo. Now, it's one thing to agree on the cost cap, as we all know, it's about 650 million euros as the cost cap, but you then have to design the instrument in order to make sure that it fits that budget that you agree to. So we are now, as the board, working to meet the members' obligation on designing a telescope that will fit this budget of about 650 million. The second point is that there is a lot of work that is being done in this phase called the pre-construction phase. So this is the phase between the time that the site decision was made up to 2017, 2018, before the first dish of the phase 1 is being built, where there's work behind the scene on designing how the telescope in its entirety will look like. So what I mean by this, as you know, is that once you've processed the data, which will probably happen in Karoo for the South African component of the telescope, you have to then transport this data to Manchester and to the rest of the world. How do you actually process the data? Do you have the technologies, and what would be the design of the ICT hardware and infrastructure and software that you would need to make sure that you, once you receive this science data, you are able to transport it. Are you able to process it? So these are the decisions that the board is taking stock of to make sure that we have ready design by 2017 that could then be given to contractors who are going to then build the telescope. We, as South Africa, one of the reasons why we thought it would be useful to bring the SKA board here is that there is a lot of work that we are doing in the Pinelands office around software development that would fit into the work packages that the SKA would need by 2017. So we wanted to also expose the board to the investment, the skills and the work that South Africans are doing in the Pinelands office as part of our one obligations of the bid that we had submitted, but also just to showcase that we are not just resting on our laurels having been given this opportunity. We are actually investing in people as well as the infrastructure to make sure that we are ready for the construction by 2017-2018.
Let's talk about the partners with which we share this particular project. My colleague, the sports presenter here on Morning Live, Valen Kirtley, and myself were laughing at the fact that South Africa and Australia, when it comes to the cricket field, we're quite rivals there, and there's fierce contestation of who comes out victorious. So speak to us about the collaboration with Australia when it comes to the SKA, which I'm sure is more amicable. Talk to us about, now that the bidding process is over, how we're working well together.
Yes, I mean, we were joking at the board meeting yesterday that the incident that happened in Jeffreys Bay with the shark that was nearly biting the surfer had nothing to do with our process of bidding for the SKA, you know, the incident that happened in Jeffreys Bay. But on a serious note, we spoke about the possibility of collaborating on ensuring that the lessons that we are learning on both sides in the building of their precursor telescope, which is called the ASCAP, and what we're building in South Africa as Meerkat, we can collaborate in making sure that there's a work package consortium that is responsible for the infrastructure for the SKA. So we have agreed that we are going to collaborate and work together in learning how the costing, the power for the telescope, the road, and how to manage, most importantly for a radio telescope, as you would know, how we can manage or share lessons learned on how to manage radio frequency interference so that the site is free from any radio frequency interference. So we're working together. Will probably be a consortium that will be bidding at the time of building the telescope together in order to build for this infrastructure work package. We've also agreed that on the scientific front, there are a number of areas as part of the South Africa-Australia bilateral agreement in science and technology on some of the processing of the data between South African astronomers as well as Australian astronomers. So you're right, I think we are now looking for partnership and how we can work together with our colleagues from Australia.
We'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your insight and input. Dr. Phil Mjwara, the Director General of the Department of Science and Technology, just briefing us on the SKA International Organisation, having held a meeting in the mother city, Cape Town, this week.